And then at the end of the day, the builders are just looking at it like, all right, well, if we got to do all of these things, then we got to cut corners in this way. And it gives me a notification on my phone, like you were just kind of alluding to, and it says such and such's name, house anniversary. And then so that just gave me a reason to text them.
So they just said, we'll probably, I know that these homes will eventually get flooded, but they'll probably get away with it long enough for us to sell it.
What's new this week? What you've been working on? Anything prospecting wise that you've tried differently this week or anything?
There were a few people over the last year that I had an interaction with where they said, hey, eventually I'm going to be looking to buy or sell. And I've been revisiting those conversations and putting together like a market update. And one of the guys in particular said he wanted a specific condo building. And I noticed that this past week, they've only had 1 or 2 listings over there for the past couple of years. But right now they have 6 listings in that building. Wow. So I put together a little packet. So I'm just trying to reach back out in a helpful way to some of the people that I've had conversations with over the last year.
Yeah, dude, that's good. Definitely the follow-up. I mean, that's where 99% of agents miss the mark on being able to fully help the public. Whatever that reach out looks like, and then someone gets to a point where they're like, yes, but not right now. And then that agent completely forgets about them in every way. Like no emails, no anything. Yeah. So that's huge that you're doing that.
Well, one thing that's been on my mind lately is I need to get my CRM system to a more simplified, manageable way of daily tasks.
Yeah.
Of just keeping people top of my mind.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so easy to just focus on your hot, warm sheet and completely forget about the cold guys or the people that bought with you last year. But I don't necessarily need to reach out to those people all the time being like, hey, you got any money for me? That's not what I want to do at all. I just want those people to come back up in my brain on like a somewhat regular basis. At least once a month, I want their name to come up in an alert on my phone, like, hey, how's this doing?
No, that's good.
And then there you go. Then I'll just give them a call and see what's going on and just actually, kick it with them on a personal level. So I think I need to use AI to create a system that's putting things on my calendar to semi-regularly cross my mind of certain people that might be just forgetting about what's going on in their life and need to reconnect.
Yeah, that's something that I've spent a lot of time on over the past year is like just trying to get my systems more dialed to where it's like better set up for daily life as a realtor. Like my CRM works in ways that like really help, but then it's also limiting in ways, and not to get too developer-y talk on you, but like APIs, for example, my CRM and back end of my website completely are on lockdown, which really limits your ability to integrate with other apps that talk to each other. But a beautiful connection that I have made is that I now have it where I put a contact in my iPhone, first name, last name, and then in the company field, I use that actually as a segmenting tool, where it's either buyer lead, seller lead, past buyer client, past seller client, current seller client, or current buyer client. And then I have others like REA, meaning real estate agent. So that's specific to real estate agent outreach. Service provider, like let's say it's a lender or a home inspector that I want to stay in touch with. And then like sphere, that's just like friends, family. That's just like the general, but I basically have it where that information plus their email field. And then I really try to fill in on my iPhone, I try to fill in their contact as much as possible. Like if I know their birthday, like I can look that up on Facebook, or if they've given me a copy of their driver's license, I'll usually try to fill that in. Current address, and then I try to update that if they buy something, for example. All that good information, I try to just like put that in there, right? And then I have that where that is being synced with Google Contacts. And because it's synced with Google Contacts, I have an automation that basically takes that company field and it turns that into a contact label. Where then it is like organized, where like now in my CRM I can go and find all my past buyer clients, or all my past seller clients, or my current buyers that I'm working with. And there's actually like on the CRM, for example, it's mainly an email tool is all my CRM is, other than like just keeping yourself organized. But there's like Century 21 branded, like, email drip campaigns for sellers, or potential, seller leads, for example. And then like, for example, the past clients, I put them on what's called, they call it a preferred client club, I believe is what it's called. So they get like 5 or 6 mailers from me a year, and I pay as those are mailed out. So it's not like you have to pay one lump sum. And it's honestly, dude, it's super affordable. Like one of them's a magazine, and it's like, I want to say it's less than $5 per person per magazine that goes out. Then there's 4 postcards, and then there's like even like a calendar at the end of the year for the following year. And it just has all your branded stuff on it and has a custom tailored message. Is that too powerful? I don't know. I signed my past clients up on it. I think over the years that'll help, at least remind those people of you, and stay in front of them, and not have to be like, so like, I didn't, you dropped the ball by not reaching out to them. And then that makes it whenever you actually reach out. Like, for example, yesterday I reached out to some clients. They bought a house from me 2 years ago. And my CRM actually keeps track of when that closing was, and it gives me a notification on my phone, like you were just kind of alluding to, and it says such and such's name, house anniversary. And then that just gave me a reason to text them and be like, happy house anniversary. I can't believe it's been 2 years. And then also like setting up notifications for their birthdays. It just like helps like remind you to actually make the connection. That's just been like some minor stuff I've done that I don't know how well that's actually worked, dollar amount wise, but I do know that, the more past clients you have, I definitely want to stay in touch with them in some way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the systems, man, it's like, I still don't have it tailored exactly how I want it, but I would say my CRM is like mainly my phone, which is kind of cool. But it's also bad because, I have to use like, you can save up to 9 messages, like different people in the messages app. I run out of space pretty quickly on there, because that's typically how I like stay top of mind. And then I make like notes on my phone, which isn't good because like you never really come back to it. But that's where I will be like on the phone with someone, like taking notes, and then like I'll try to fill that information in on the contact on the iPhone. And that does get passed to the CRM, but it's still, like, to your point, it doesn't set a reminder. Although the new Moxie Rise app, which is the CRM tool that I'm telling you about, they just came out with a mobile app, and that is one of the new tools that like you can basically talk with AI and say like, hey, set a reminder for this person, and it'll like do it for you.
Okay.
So I'm trying to familiarize myself with it. Yeah.
That's something they're rolling out with us too, and I believe it's Moxie as well. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
But they're putting together like an AI assistant essentially, to where that's what you would do rather than going in and manually creating a new entry and doing this and setting it up on this email campaign. You just send a big paragraph of what you want, and the AI does it for you.
That's awesome. That's
cool. But dude, are you going to go back and look to make sure it did it right? And that could be a problem.
That's the thing where, like, for example, in my case, there's been no training on this new system that rolled out. It's just kind of been like me figuring it out by myself, just like trial and error, because there's no instruction manual. I mean, it's kind of barbaric how I'm doing it, but that's how I've been trying to figure it out, I guess. I didn't even know that there was, like, no one told me there was a Moxie Rise app. I just, like, something was clicking one day because I was tired of going in my computer and having to manually log in every single day. So then I was just like, let's see if there's an app now, because a few months ago I tried and there wasn't. And now there is all of a sudden.
Dude, you know what I think would be super helpful, and I've looked into it. there are some programs that typically corporations are the ones using them. They just buy this big package, and once it gets spread out across all their employees, then the overhead seems to make sense. But the overhead for a one-man business doesn't. I looked into it. It's
Yeah.
just way too much, like $600 a month or more.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
but anyways, it's a software that listens to all your conversations, makes notes of it, and then sets like actionable tasks at the end of the call. So you could basically just mindlessly have the convo, not have to worry about taking notes or remembering what you talked about in the past. You can just be sharp and keep moving and get through the phone call, and then all of it is right there at the end. And then even if you're on the phone with them and you finish the phone call and you've talked about 20 different topics to build some rapport in this call, then at the end you have your 4 actionable steps you talked about, so you can review that with the caller and be like, okay, so we talked about this, I'm going to do this for you, we have this coming up, and remember you need to do this, and then the next time that we'll communicate is this on the, you know what I mean? It just having it all right there and recap, man, that would help my brain so much, because I think sometimes I lose like creativity and free-flowing conversation and even just listening to the customer more, because I'm like focused on remembering what was discussed.
Oh yeah, I agree, man. That writing notes has helped, but like to your point, it definitely takes away from the conversation at hand. So that
tough,
I
man.
think
You're not even looking at the.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're on the
Yeah,
phone, it's different, but yeah, totally in person too. Yeah, that definitely affects it in person for sure.
Yeah, sometimes in person, especially like when you first start talking to somebody, when they first walk in, everything just goes right over your head. You don't remember their name. You don't remember what they said. You're so focused on something else as you're like trying to get into the flow state of the conversation that it's hard to pay attention at the beginning of a conversation as well.
I have that issue, but I think that's where it's all heading, man, with this AI and automation stuff. I
Right.
think what you were just talking about is going to be pretty average daily life for people 5-10 years out for sure.
Right. And right now it's like completely unaffordable technology for a one-man business. Most sales reps in large companies have this. I can't remember the name of the providers of the software, but like most people watching this video that have worked for a large sales corporation or something, they've used this software. And dude, don't take it for granted, because not having it does kind of suck.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's like it's a double-edged sword, kind of, with the AI stuff, because like part of me hates it, but then the other part of me like knows that I'm gonna get left behind if I don't kind of keep up with it.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Grant. What is the one thing you can think of from working for the home builder that was like a software tool that they had that you miss? Is there one thing in particular that you really feel like they had that you don't have
Honestly,
now?
the whole time I was there was always, I think that's just the nature of me. There's always things in my working environment that I'm like, I wish I could change that, wish I could change that. The CRM like functioned, but it felt old. I can't really put my finger on what I'm even trying to say here. And there was a lot of repetitive tasks that I felt like other systems should have been integrated with it to not require that
honestly,
much hands.
There are too many options with it as well. I think it should have been a little bit more simplified. You don't need that many different ways to do the same task.
Yeah, it was set up more for a developer for sure. It's basically set up to where like a company can really tailor it to their exact needs, and it kind of encompasses like where it could fit on almost any business. But the problem is that you have to be kind of a developer to set it up for that business for sure, but almost a developer to really get the most out of it, because there was some stuff through just trial and error, or just hearing through the grapevine from other agents of them doing stuff, and I'm like, what, how did you do that? And it's just one of those things where there's no training on it. It was just like they just kept clicking different stuff and learned, oh yeah, I can do it that way. I guess it was always interesting just hearing through the grapevine of just like what people were doing. And like, I think at one point, someone taught me how to like look at other communities' prospects. Not that I was doing anything shady with that, but
Oh
like,
my
you can almost like
goodness. How?
tap into other people's info that
No
way. Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
of
That
like
was definitely a thing.
other agents, other communities under the same company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought, I had never heard of it till someone brought it up. And then I was just like, that's kind of like, okay, I feel like people have been definitely like stealing my, trying to drive business away from my community to theirs kind of deal. That definitely happened. Or there would
Man,
be
those
like,
leads are so valuable to agents. They really should. Builders should like sell off like packages of old leads. Like if the person was deemed
what they
closed out
do.
by the like on-site agent, they should just sell all the closed out leads to agencies.
In fact, I was talking to an agent. At this point, I can't even really put my mind on who it was, but it was another agent from a different brokerage, and we had the same thing in common that we both sold for the same builder. No, dude, it was actually a lender. It was a lender, yeah. But he told me he used to buy basically, closed out opportunities from this builder back in the 90s, and that the law apparently.
Whoa.
Yeah, apparently there's like laws around it now. Where if you're gonna be sharing that data, at least the people have to agree to it up front, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But back then it was just the wild, wild west where you could do stuff like that. So I don't know what
Yeah.
kind of costs, he was looking at paying per lead, but that's a very fascinating thing. I had multiple realtors that would come to me and say like, hey, if you ever have a buyer that's unrepresented, and they would like kind of throw out like a sort of, they would offer an under the table kind of pay structure that definitely
Right.
wasn't
But
approved
dude,
by
if you
either
ask
broker.
any questions about it, you quickly would be like, nah, this can't work. It has to be
No.
like a,
I just want to be
yeah,
clear.
it
I
kind of
never
has
did
to be.
that. That
Yeah,
was
me
way too
either.
much for what it was worth. I mean, like
Right. But
who wants to
obviously
make
we got
$300
proposed.
with a risk license?
Right. But obviously we got proposed that a good bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the thing about it is like, how are you going to make that happen? Because if it's not in the closing docs, then you can't legally enforce that. It's like going to buy drugs from a drug dealer and them ripping you off. What are you going to do? Go to the cops? It's a situation like that. So like you're just taking their word that they're going to somehow under the table reimburse you at the end. It's just not.
Yeah, and then I even asked one of the agents, like, dude, how are you going to expense that? Like, you can't pay me
Right.
directly. I have to go broker to broker. And then he's like, oh, it'll just be a marketing expense. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, nah. Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah, not it.
But I was going to say this. How much longer do you think Zillow will be king of the buyer leads? Because right now, if you're really thinking like who has the most up-to-date information on what people, on which phone numbers and addresses are in the market looking to buy, who knows first? And it's Zillow, 100%. Everyone's looking on Zillow.
It is Zillow, but I would argue that especially with like what Compass has been doing, and
what?
other Compass, they basically made it where like they can have private listings where like the listing is only on their network, for example.
No, Sotheby's is now a part of that as well.
There you go.
It's called CIH. Dude, it's not going to go anywhere. That's a bunch of malarkey.
I agree.
That was just a way for them to be in the listing appointment and be like, and we have this software, Dude, no. Listen, I'm just saying, like, sometimes investment properties do sell off market. And when you get into the multi-million-dollar price range in uber luxury, very unique homes that are one of one, then it totally makes sense. But every other home that's a normal Joe Schmo from 100K up to probably like 2 million, is definitely going to benefit from being on the market. Like just
And
putting it
just
out there to
everywhere. Yeah, just put it
right.
like
You
in
don't
as
have
many
to have a
places as
listing
possible.
sign. You don't even have to have showings in being on the market. So
Mhm.
there's just absolutely no harm in it. Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah,
not to
I think that was
crap
just
all over.
no, dude. I think it's just those brokerages' way of like trying to combat what Zillow has become.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we as agents, and especially in the listing agreement, we do have the power to decide whenever we're putting a property in MLS to check yes to share on internet is what it's called on mine. I don't know what it's called on yours or what it looks like on yours,
Yeah.
but
Same.
share to internet. It just means, is it going to be syndicated on the International Data Exchange, the IDX, or not? And if it's not, then no, it will not be on Zillow. No, it will not be on Realtor.com, Homes.com, or any other website. It'll just be on MLS. But then you got to think: is that in the buyer's or the seller's, best interest, and the buyer at the end of the day? Because ultimately, it's doing a disservice to the buyers out there by giving them the impression that only said properties are available. It almost is like we're going back in time whenever, pre-internet, whenever people would have to go to a local brokerage office and they would literally be given a pamphlet of all the listings that that specific brokerage office had. And then sure, you could have an agent go show you around at those particular listings, but they're not going to show you any other, if brokerage A has those listings and they show, they're not going to show brokerage B's listings. And you got to think, is that really in the best interest of sellers and buyer? I don't think so. I think it's more or less steering in that regard in a way.
Yeah, one of my realtor friends keeps bringing this up to me that he really feels like the industry is not catering to the customers, to the end users of the services. It's like gatekeeping in a way. And I had a conversation with another realtor yesterday, and he was saying just how like real estate in the 90s when he was selling, he felt like their knowledge was more powerful. Now they've released too much of that knowledge, in his words, to the public. And it's like, no, that is so the wrong way to look at it. We shouldn't be trying to keep the realtor job alive and therefore restricting the public from being able to access things just so that we can get paid. We should be catering everything to the end user's experience. We should be somehow improving the sales process, making things easier for them to buy a home so that our services are valuable. So for us to increase our value in a time where technology is taking away a lot of the job, then we need to be forward thinking, not back thinking. We shouldn't be like trying to put restrictions on things and trying to be conservative. We need to be moving with the times and be cutting edge.
Yeah, I agree,
about
man.
that a lot.
That's why, and I know that at least you were a Homes.com member agent like I am. But that was really what got me on the Homes.com wave.
I have 1.6 million views on Homes.com from that.
That's crazy.
I saw it today. That's crazy.
Just like me, I'm sure you haven't generated too many leads off of that, but ask yourself this question: are your sellers better off with that exposure or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think that.
And it's hard to quantify. I look at it more as like a Geico ad, like a commercial, or like, a plane with a Geico thing on the back of it, where there's really no like way to quantify exactly how good it's doing. But I do know that over time, that'll not only help your brand, but it'll help the homes you're selling, which ultimately helps the sellers that you're representing. And then it also, I think it'll earn you more business. But I like it. My point bringing up the homes thing compared to the traditional Zillows and Realtor.coms is that Homes.com isn't trying to sell someone or sell an agent a lead. They're ultimately just trying to get people connected to you as a list agent. Like for those viewers watching right now that aren't sure how Zillow makes money, basically agents in whatever zip code can pay to play, where the more they pay, the more they outbid other agents, and the bigger of the pie, the overall share of leads that they would get. And it ultimately comes from buyers like yourself watching, as you're scrolling, Zillow, and you end up liking a home and you want to schedule a tour, where it says schedule a tour or talk to agent. It kind of leads you on to believe that you're going to be reaching out and connecting with that person that has it listed, that listing agent. But in reality, it actually connects you to an agent that's separate from the list agent. And it actually, basically, Zillow sells that your information to them for them to be able to reach out to you and them try to help you with their services. And on top of them paying up front, those agents are paying upwards of 40% of their total payday at the close table if you buyer moves forward and closes with that agent. So, and that's if they buy that particular house or any other house from you. So, that is.
So you're basically paying Zillow indirectly.
Yeah, because sure, the buyer doesn't pay the buyer's agent's commission in most cases, but like you got to think, where is the seller coming up with those proceeds to pay the buyer's agent? And then you got to think, if Zillow wasn't getting 40% of it, that ultimately is telling you that those same buyer's agents would have been okay making 40% less. So then you got to think, is Zillow inflating the market a little bit in that way? Alternatively, I like what Homes.com does. Homes.com does differently, because you, the buyer on Homes.com, you're scrolling on different listings, and it actually says who the property is listed by, and you can call them directly. And in fact, in a lot of cases, Homes.com will actually answer the phone on behalf of those list agents, kind of pre-qualify them in a way, and then you'll have a real conversation with the real listing agent. Now, this kind of goes into our conversation of, are those people in that scenario better off finding out initial information from the list agent and then reaching out to get a buyer's agent to represent them? Maybe. I think in the right scenario, that makes sense. But they may just be better off moving forward and almost representing themselves, depending on how knowledgeable they are on the experience.
I don't know about that. I do think probably it is in everyone's best interest for everyone to have, for the different parties to have separate agents. Now, I guess it does depend on the deal and it depends on the person. And there's also going to be situations where my buyer client, my friend, falls in love with one of my listings. And there's nothing I can do about that, So I'm not saying it's, I totally disagree with the concept of representing both sides. But in general, I think it is better for someone to get a buyer's agent involved very early in the process before they start really reaching out to sellers personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think the people that have bought 10 plus houses, that's a little bit different of a story. And then investors, those are also a little bit different and unique scenarios.
Yeah, well said.
In some cases, they might be able to actually walk away with paying less, but like in a lot of cases too, it's those listings are already under an agreement where the listing agent is getting paid a certain amount regardless, if there's a buyer's agent involved or not. It just essentially increases the payday of that listing brokerage.
And some homes are real straightforward. Like if you're selling a new construction home, it's $400K and the builder. It could be a really simple deal potentially if it's a cash deal, and it really could get to a point where it's like, okay, this is just easier for everyone involved if just one person handles the whole transaction. So there are times.
And I've actually come to find through helping one of my buyer clients right now find a multifamily property, is that a lot of multifamily in the commercial space is actually done where there's one brokerage involved, and they kind of facilitate both sides of the deal. And that seems to be the norm in deals of that size. In fact, like one brokerage in particular, I'm not going to name their name, but they are actually predominantly a lender in the multifamily space.
Wow.
And they also have a commercial brokerage multifamily sales team within that. And they really just try to do kind of like the builder we used to work for. They just try to hit every single point that a buyer or seller in that space would need. title services, brokerage, asset management in this case, property management, I believe, is even offered. And then obviously the sales side too. And how they operate, I asked the guy because, I was inquiring about one of their deals that they have listed. And I was trying to understand more about their deal being offered. And also, is there a buyer's brokerage commission being offered? And he told me that no, they never offer it, that they'll have to, basically my buyer would have to factor that into the offer. And that would affect, what the seller would accept, for example. So I found that very interesting. He also told me, because then I just kind of I was fascinated by that idea. So then I asked this guy, I was like, so what happens if a buyer comes directly to you and wants you to show them help them buy a multifamily property?
Yeah.
And then he's just like, well, they can look at the ones we have listed. And then it essentially alluded to the fact of they're not going to go out of their way and do any sort of buyer brokerage activity to show other properties. Their main bread and butter is they're going to help the seller. They're going to get it listed. They're going to also offer upfront rates and so forth with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac for the agency financing that they provide. And they're going to just try to encompass not only getting the listing agreement, but also doing the loan and then just helping the buyer come directly to them to make the deal happen. And a lot of times too, though, you got to think with deals this size, they are institutional buyers. So we're talking about huge corporations that end up buying assets like this anyways. So there is a difference there.
But they have employees that are specifically their job is to evaluate the deal and do all the buyer agent work.
Yeah. And it really opened my eyes up, though, to an opportunity in this space of, the non-institutional buyers that are looking at assets that size. I don't think that there is a lot of buyers brokerage activities being had, and especially ones that would keep a true buyer's, keep their true best interest in mind. Because I think I've noticed that there's a lot of brokers that'll just try to sell you their deal to get it sold, right?
Yeah,
and it's
I hear you. Yeah,
obviously in the seller's best interest, but then you got to think, they're really just trying to offload something on a buyer that doesn't know any better in a lot of cases, I think. So it kind of opened my eyes up to, okay, there's definitely opportunity here. And being able to tell what a good deal is and what a bad deal is, and being able to guide a buyer through that.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, it really broke, wasn't how I thought that space worked at all, to be honest. I thought it just worked very similar to residential.
Man, each little niche within the industry is a whole other warehouse, dude. It's not like you open the door and it's a bedroom. Every single door leads to a big warehouse. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why, you'll find, especially in the commercial space, where an agent only does multifamily, or an agent only does big land parcels, or retail or whatever it is. I don't want to be a generalist, and I'm trying not to be. I think at this point I'm really narrowing it down to multifamily, land development, and luxury residential, which I feel like I could really help people in that, all three areas potentially.
Yeah, I want to focus specifically on luxury residential at the moment, but eventually I want to learn more and open the door to development as well. Or even redevelopment. Because in my area, there's a lot of older buildings that are at the 100-year mark, and they're just beginning to become a problem.
Yeah.
That's one thing about America, dude. It's not like it's been here forever. We are coming up on brand new problems right now because of the young age. A lot of these buildings were built with materials and stuff that were brand new at the time, and we're only just now seeing what that's going to do. Asbestos is a perfect example of this. Asbestos was used in everything, and for 30 years they were fine with it. They were like, nah, this is great, this is fine. They finally stopped using it completely, but they still are the buildings are okay. We should just stop manufacturing with this stuff. And
Right.
now we're finally condemning buildings with asbestos. So yeah, it does make you wonder, like, there's going to be a shift in demand from development to redevelopment. At least a certain percentage of the need for development will shift over to the need for redevelopment, or even just tearing down and rebuilding, maybe.
Yeah. So I guess for the audience that may not know the exact difference of development versus redevelopment, I guess redevelopment is development. It's just a specific type, I would say. But how would you classify the
Oh, I don't know,
difference?
dude. I'm not the guy to educate people on redevelopment.
Well,
But I guess I'm just saying, like, I'm using it generally to speak
yeah,
towards remodeling, like turning one thing, rezoning, remodeling,
I see.
rezoning, and then
Yeah,
rebuilding, tearing down and rebuilding.
like repurposing. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, because I remember you had that one listing that was affected by the hurricane, and it was
hmm
basically condemned, right? And so that
No, that one
was it
didn't get
condemned?
condemned. Fortunately, I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
had to deal with the home that did get basically condemned, but it is happening. It did happen after the hurricane, basically, and there are a lot of ways around it. So anybody that's, you know, a nice family that really cares about their house, you can pretty much figure out a way to get out of it no matter what. But essentially, the rule was made so that investors specifically would, and people that have the money that aren't going to fight it too hard, would
Hmm.
change the structure, the home, to now conform to flood code policy, which is typically
Oh, I
13
see.
feet above sea level. Everything needs to be 13 feet above sea level. So if you're right on the water, well, you got to be on stilts. But if you're like, you know, a couple blocks in, then you may not have to raise it that high. But what they were
Mm-hmm.
doing is sending out letters to every single property after the flood called substantial damage letters. It was basically determined by somebody, a mix of things, probably the Zestimate, and like, you know, previous property appraisals. And then
Yeah.
yeah, when I say the Zestimate, I mean like the computer coming up with the number, basically. Then
Yeah. I mean,
previous
assessors
appraisals.
or whatever.
And
Yeah.
the issue with this estimate, the issue with the computer coming up with the problem is they've never seen inside the house. They don't know what the carpet looks like. They don't know if there's water damage from a busted pipe, or if you know, some crazy domestic violence resulted in holes in all the walls and stuff. Like, you have no idea what the inside of this house is going to look like.
They
So
don't
to
even know
you,
if the basement's finished in a lot of cases.
yeah, you can't just use the
So,
stats and paint a picture of the price. But anyways, they're using stuff like that, and then they would actually have someone from the city come by, look at the home. Is there a pile of trash outside? AKA, did it get flooded? Is, you
hmm
know, where's the water line on the garage? Like, they were just looking to see which homes got flooded, how bad it seemed like they got flooded, and an estimate of what kind of work would probably have to go into remodeling it. And then they came up
hmm
with a value. And if the cost to remodel it was more than half of the total structure value to get it up to code, then they deemed it, you can't fix it up. It's past
wow.
remediation. And we're not
And
going to
so they
allow
like
you to get a permit.
would they like actually keep track of construction costs through that? I'm
They
just
just wouldn't give
fascinated by
out
this.
permits.
Oh, I see. So
So,
you basically
so
go
if
to them with
you,
a plan.
yeah,
So
so
you would
here's
just
how
like go
people
to
have.
them and say, "Hey, this is how much I expect to pay to fix this up," and then that's part of the permitting process, I guess.
No,
No.
they, if they deem it substantially damaged, condemned.
Oh, I gotcha.
But the ways around it that people learned is that if you do have a third party come and appraise your home, they can actually re-evaluate the
Mhm.
estimate that they have on the value of your home, which then can get it high enough to where the repairs are now under 50% of the value of the structure.
Yeah.
Or you can challenge it with the city. Sometimes people are allowing them to do that. Or you can come up with a creative permit. Maybe you leave the first floor alone and you just build on top of it. You know, so people are
Yeah.
coming up with creative ways to work around it. But at the same time, I have seen some new listings recently where these people, there's furniture and everything inside of a home with no drywall or insulation. So some people responded by just being like, I can't afford to fix this up. So we're just going to live in it. We're just going to tear out all the walls and live in basically a aluminum structure. I mean, just a shell. Yeah.
Wow. What an interesting, it's just weird how stuff comes about. I mean, it's like you just learn as you go, more or less. Just kind of like what we were talking about last week with, I guess, how like cities become cities and so forth, and how some are designed way better with way more forethought than others. But it's kind of like a routine kind of theme through all of that is it's, I guess, you can't really know what's right around the corner sometimes.
Right.
It's fascinating.
And you know, the thing is, like, while there are some people that are just living out horror stories among this remediation rule and the hurricane and all these things, at the same time, the rules that are being put in place do make sense, and they are a necessary evil. The issue is they shouldn't have built these homes in flood zones like they did. One-story homes in flood zones is stupid. And you can't say that they didn't have the technology or whatever. No, what happened was they ran out of the prime spots that were sitting up.
So they just said,
but they still wanted to build low-income homes that people could afford on the water with the remaining land. So they just said, you know, I know that these homes will eventually get flooded, but they'll probably get away with it long enough for us to sell it. So they built these concrete block, single-family, one-story homes on the least desirable waterfront areas, which are prone to flooding.
So you think it's more that than, say, like sea levels rising, or the fact that like these flood maps can change every 10 or so years whenever they redo them?
I'm not debating sea levels rising.
No, I'm not trying to make it that. I was just curious your perspective.
No, it's a great question. No, I'm not debating that because it could still be going on. I'm just saying that is how it happened. People in the 1920s, when they first started developing St. Pete, they knew and they paid attention to which areas were not going to get flooded. They knew what they were doing back then. So there's no excuse for 40 years later them not doing that. Like they didn't make those mistakes in the 1920s, and then they ran out of the best spots that they knew were not going to get flooded.
So now that we're going down this path,
the same flood plans, just because it's cheaper, and just because they knew, and the people that moved in probably knew there was some risk involved, but they didn't care.
Yeah, because that was what I was about to ask you. I was like, do you think that this was just builder greed, or do you think that these were knowledgeable buyers that knew what they were signing up for at the time?
It's really a city problem because the city shouldn't have allowed the construction of that. So it's like city greed, because then they have more people paying property tax, a higher property tax. So it's just greed. That really is what it is. Like they filled in all the best areas of St. Pete. The nicest neighborhoods and the oldest neighborhoods in St. Pete are the highest elevation neighborhoods. They knew exactly what they're doing. And then in the 60s and 70s, like for instance, all of our beaches, that you'll notice if you look on a map, there's all these like fingers, like canals, like they go into the intercoastal. And it'll just be like somebody literally built a road and then built this road and then built this road by filling in sand and building up like dunes, basically. And dude, every hurricane, that's what gets smoked. But all the natural forming barrier islands, the homes that are on the natural land that has existed there for hundreds of years, they're fine. They sit like 3 feet, 4 feet higher, and the water currents and stuff come in and erase the man-made land and leaves the original, land for the most part. And so it's just like people knew that in the 20s, and so they developed cities around that in the prime time spots, and then the remaining land was built inexpensive, affordable homes that shouldn't have been built there, one story, just to make more money and not waste any of the land. And it's really sad. Because the people that end up suffering are the people in the lower price points that buy them, on the happen to be the decade that we get the next big storm that absolutely devastates it.
Is there a lot of like, would you say that there's commercial buildings like retail centers and so forth that are in these floodplains, or they're up out of it, like they're not
They're
even?
about. I mean, there are like, especially the beaches. I mean, the
Yeah,
beaches are just going to get smoked by a hurricane no matter what, and you have to have retail out there. So there are some
yeah.
areas that, but you're not going to find our major retail spots in a flood zone. Every retail spot pretty much is in an X flood zone, which is like the 500-year period.
Because that, that my idea was, I guess if the population was going to be what it is, anyways, you would you agree that they should have just built up rather than out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. They should have left. And, I mean, the city planning did an okay job with the zoning to like restrict this from getting out of hand. But all of the low-lying areas should be parks.
Hmm.
That's it. They should be public access parks. They're the most beautiful areas and they're the least desirable to build in. And then everything else that isn't a park, then that's still in these really low-lying areas, should have very strict rules on being built on stilts, which we
Hmm.
know work and hold up against hurricanes. Like we that's been tested for years now. It works.
Have the seawalls, like, have people been building those to try to like overcome this issue? I'm curious about that.
It works. It works, but like the water levels, if they rise above the seawall, then the seawall does nothing. Seawall works for erosion, but the issue here is actually
But
not erosion.
I guess you can't
Yeah.
really build a 13-foot seawall effectively. Is that kind of what the issue is in a lot of cases?
You wouldn't
I
you
don't.
wouldn't even want to.
It's so expensive, I guess.
Yeah. First of all,
Or
just yeah, so expensive because a third of all my homes in my county are in an AE or an A flood zone, are basically like highly likely. I don't know what the total amount of feet of elevation, but I think it's 15 feet. I think it's a third of all of the homes in my county are under 15 feet in elevation.
wow.
That could be wrong, but it's something close to that. So it's just
Yeah.
like no matter what, we're gonna have an issue. Like building up a seawall actually could put,
Yeah.
or building your home up even on a hill could actually bring legal consequences to you because it then forces the water to your neighbor's yards, whereas it should
Oh,
have just been, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's
Yeah,
you
that's a
can't even
very
do that.
complicated issue. Yeah, that's just like I
Yep.
can't even imagine trying to solve that as like someone in
But,
office or something.
but it's really sad because back in the 20s when they first started developing it, they knew it was an issue. And then they still 40 years later like decided to do that.
Yeah,
So
that's sad, man.
it's sad.
I mean,
But you know
at
what?
least it sounds like,
How much
yeah,
of
go
that are
on.
we doing today? How much of our new construction is just detestable and not going to hold up and not going to last and it looks ugly and it doesn't make sense and it shouldn't be there and it's stole from farmland and how much of those mistakes are we making today?
I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like 90% of what's built here in Georgia is properly built for the environment here. As far as longevity goes, I think homes built nowadays will not last, 100 years like homes that were built early 1900s, late 1800s would. Um, I can't really put my finger on exactly how long they last. A lot of that goes into how well it's maintained, and like, are you changing your roof, for example? That's like one of the most important things to maintain for longevity.
Mhm.
Um, Foundations, I mean, slabs, I don't know. I think they could go either way depending on how that concrete decides to behave over the years and
Mhm.
what's under it. So
Would you
I don't
say
know.
a
What are
crawl space is more forgiving? I think so,
uh,
huh?
I think crawl spaces, like, they're more forgiving in the sense that, like, if there's a plumbing issue, you don't have to start busting up concrete, I guess. You can
Right.
just get up under the
Hmm.
house and go into the chambers of hell to
Hmm.
make the I hate crawl spaces. Golly, dude.
Oh yeah, dude.
Um,
Under that terrifying.
yeah, no. You will not find me in a crawl space. I'll give it a good look from the entrance, but Don't expect me to go. I mean, I just can't do it. I'm
I had a
claustrophobic
friend
to
that was
begin
his
with.
whole job.
Yeah.
He was on our crawl spaces every day. Oh,
But I think that they're more forgiving in that way, Zeke. Um, and then I would argue that there's less concrete that could be like, broken up over the years. It's just,
mhm.
you got to worry about cross beams and so forth, or floor trusses, I guess, depending on
Mhm.
when and how they're built. Um, that are basically supporting the first level's weight. But I think it's pros and cons, I would say. I'm more of a fan of slabs just because of the energy efficiency, and that it's cheaper costs to build. Um, so that's just me personally here in Georgia. I like
Mhm.
slabs for that reason. But I can't really tell you how long they're going to last. You know what I mean? Like, even if they are
Yeah.
built up to code and so forth. Um, but I guess homes have always been built on slabs if you think about it. It just depends
Mhm.
on like what kind. I mean, back then you never know what the concrete consisted of. I feel like it was probably a different mix in every home.
Mhm.
Um,
I think most of what we build will be pretty well built and will stick around for a while. I'm always surprised when a third world country gets hit, like Jamaica got hit by a hurricane. And you watch the videos, and it's like houses that when you watch our hurricane videos, they're just getting water. There's wind, there's shingles blowing off, there's trees bending, but for the most
mhm.
part, the homes are just getting flooded. But in Jamaica, like structures that look like they would be totally fine, one little wave comes in, and the whole
Just a whole,
structure goes. So our
geez.
building standards are so much higher in the US than other countries. I do think like they are building solid structures here.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say yes. It's just like the quality of lumber and the quality of certain materials throughout the build have decreased. But relatively speaking, like you said, I do agree
Yeah.
that we build probably a far superior product here than most other countries.
Yeah. I'm just frustrated with this modern style, dude. Like when it was first being executed, I mean, especially when you go back to like the 60s and stuff where they were really tapping into this like modern how else would you even describe it?
Are you talking about like the process or like the style?
The style. Uh Mid-century modern.
Oh yeah,
There's other
you're not a
things I
fan?
could think of. I don't know why I can't. But I'm not a fan. Like it used to be really nice with great materials, and it was like interesting and clever. You'd have like couches that are like in the floor and fireplaces that are floating and like things were interesting, man. The stairwell didn't make sense and the window was a weird shape. But
Hmm.
now, like the modern stuff we're building is just boxes. It's just rectangles of crappy facades that don't make sense with the floor plan, and like all the windows, none of them are interesting. They're just like normal windows thrown into a modern style. Like there's no art
Yeah,
in it at all. It's almost like they're saving money by choosing modern styles rather than going with a more traditional style where they'd have to put up trim and stuff.
yeah. No, dude, you're right. That kind of brings up an interesting argument of quality of construction and then making the home affordable because of just
Mhm.
how the market is. It's a very those two things definitely work against each other, and it's kind of a convoluted issue in and of itself. And a lot of it,
What's
I
in
would argue, begins with the municipalities and their restrictions around building. It has to
stuff?
follow so many conditions, like certain
Yeah.
size, like you have to build more than 2,800 square feet. I've heard that one. I mean, that's ridiculous for a 200 plus lot subdivision to have to every single home for us to come in there and do it. You're going to require that minimum square foot. Like the
Mhm.
average family doesn't even, I would argue, doesn't even need that much square feet. I
Right.
mean, I live in 1,000 square feet with my family of four now, 2 beds, 2 baths. We do have really good storage upstairs, but we could technically live here forever. Are we going to? Probably not. I mean, it's a little uncomfortable, particularly because I work from home. That's like the main issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like having a third bedroom or some form of office or just dedicated space for me to work, that's a must.
Mhm.
So we've even looked at like getting a shed for me to like finish out and work out of. That's a potential option. But then we just got to go through all the hoops of the setbacks and like where it would actually go on the property. And then you got to think it's not a permanent structure and it might not even be a permitted structure depending on how it's finished out. And that doesn't technically add value at the end of the day or square footage to our home. So it would be like 20 grand just kind of like set on fire if you were to look at it as like an ROI. So there's just like, I don't know. I think municipalities, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to make minimum square footages, not only for tax purposes to like drive up tax revenue, and obviously home values, because clearly they want a higher home value for tax purposes, which is really sad for the people starting out. But also, I would argue that it is. Where was I going? Sorry, I was making a point, and then now I'm like, where was I going with it? It's for the tax revenue, but also, yeah, dude, I don't know. There's just so many restrictions. Like you got to have X amount of brick. You got to have this. You got to have that. And then at the end of the day, the builders are just looking at it like, all right, well, if we got to do all of these things, then we got to cut corners in this way. And I
Right.
think that's ultimately what the building, new construction market is in America on average in most markets. Sadly, very sadly.
Yeah, I mean, am proud of some of the new construction in my city, but some of it, man, like I don't want to name any builder names, but it's just like, really? This is like a prime spot in downtown. And you're gonna make me have to look at this eyesore for the next 20 years, 30 years, maybe.
Are you talking more condos right now or single
People's
family?
loans of buying them, but yeah, townhomes in particular, just like some of them are just so ugly, dude.
I feel like some builders are just under the mindset of this location's gonna sell. Let's just put up something as cheap as possible that also won't bite us in the butt later with warranty tickets or lawsuits potentially. So let's build it just good enough to like appease that, and then probably give a third party warranty that we don't even service anyways.
Yeah, and these people have also like they got it down to a science. Like, okay, we can cut corners like this and people still buy it. We can cut corners like this and people still buy it. We can do this and people still buy it. We can do this.
We know from experience, dude. They look at take rates whenever they're even building out new communities and like what product line they're gonna put in it, and it's all based off of market statistics.
The pro, they spin it as a pro of like, hey, we're building floor plans that the community has decided on. People have given us their feedback, and that's and like to a degree, actually, that is true that they have gotten feedback. This sold, that didn't. This sold, that didn't. They use all that info and they create floor plans that make sense, but they also figure out how to cut corners. This sold. And this sold, but this sold for more with this, so like realizing exactly how they can make the most and also appease the most people for the least amount of dollars,
Yeah, and we know it from experience too, is like a lot of the times when they're building out a spec, I guess they try to go off of those averages too, because they don't want to get stuck with a house that's designed for one out of 1,000 buyers when it could have been designed for 50 out of 1,000 buyers, you know what I mean? So there's like that perspective, but also it kind of just takes a taste out of it whenever specs are involved anyways, because a builder's not going to be, they're not going to build it of what they truly feel like would be the best design in a lot of cases. They're just going to go for, well, I know that the average person wants white cabinets right now, so we're going to put those in rather than like spicing it up with some like dark green or something. I don't know. Not that that's like appealing to everyone, because it's not, and that's ultimately what the builder has to decide.
No, but it's fun. Like I went to this. We have this new golf resort called Cabot in about an hour 30 north of me, and it's beautiful. Well, they have these resort style, like villas. I guess is how I describe it. And I went in them. They're all brand new construction. Obviously, they line up on the golf course and stuff. It's beautiful. And dude, they took so many chances, and it was so cool. Like the interior design took so many chances. Crazy wallpaper here, green toilet. Like they just took all the, and it was
Yeah.
so refreshing. It's like, wow, this is what it could be. It really could be this unique. You could walk in homes and be like, whoa, look at what they did with. And in my neighborhood here, it was built mostly 1920s to 1950s, and it is like that. Every home different. You know, there are some floor plans you'll notice that are the same, but they do so many stylistic things different that it's so exciting. It's so unique, and that's the lost art. Everything is built with the white cabinets and the most appealing to the masses formula is what it
I guess, yeah, that's the production builder style, but there's also the custom builders that you can definitely pay a premium for, and the process will be arguably more difficult because there's more selection involved. There's different financing involved. You have to find the lot, then you find the builder, and then you got to like figure out where the home goes and do it all. You know, you're a lot more hands-on with the build that way.
You know,
but you can definitely customize it and make it your own, kind of like what you're talking about.
That's actually not how homes are built in my market with builders. They don't work with custom build. That's very rare. It's like only the select prime lots in my market get an opportunity to do a custom build.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's everywhere because you're always paying a premium.
Well, even like the $1 million lots are not prime enough in my market. The builder buys them, sells them as a spec home rather than getting in a process of custom building.
So as a builder, you have to have really deep pockets or a really friendly lender to get started, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. The builders around here are like, they have it down to a science. We only buy homes within these streets. We build these kinds of structures on them. And yeah, you'll never see like a weird custom home going up right now. Almost everything that's new construction, the builder purchased first, then built, then sold.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular in my area. The we build on your lot style builders. It just, you know, there's a lot of vacant lots in Northeast Georgia, so I guess that allows for that market. But I'll also point out this that I'm noticing through you telling me that. I feel like and I could be wrong because I don't know any builders in your market, but I feel like the odds of working with a scam artist builder in your market would be far lower than in my market.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yep.
Like I still hear stories a couple times a year of whether it be a new construction home, a builder just like taking off and like, for example, not paying trades off, and the homeowner was paying the builder. So then there's this bill that's on your, back, but because the builder was delivering those checks, like basically the lien goes on your property as the homeowner. But because the builder mishandled funds or misappropriated funds in some way and just like ran for the hills after they were done, now you're stuck with $150,000 in liens, for example, in one case that I heard in the past year.
Oh my goodness.
And basically the builder they've changed, they've already closed that business. They opened a new one and now they're operating under a different LLC. Dude, this stuff happens all the time. That's why it is so important for someone to really do their homework on a builder here, because that happened within the past year. But also someone in my family lost about 75 grand about 15 years ago on a spec house that they hired a builder on. The builder basically was saying that they were taking the paychecks to the local hardware store to pay off, the account basically. But in reality, he was going to the casino and gambling the funds, I guess, trying to triple X them, and lost everything. Ultimately for my family member to be left with that bill at the end of the day. So he double paid for those materials, and he took the guy, to court. But in a lot of these cases, these builders, especially the ones in that scenario, they don't have the money. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing to go after. So you can't even get your money back out of it. And it's just like that person never goes to jail or anything. I mean, I guess you could try to press charges that way. And make it not a civil matter, but more of a whatever would get the person in jail. But this person did not go to jail. They did not pay anything. Essentially, they just walked away scotch-free. And my family member walked away with $75,000 less because of the situation.
Dude, we had someone in my brokerage that they brought on for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And he had promised his neighbor he could build him a gazebo. And then he was just gonna like outsource it for like a lower cost and profit the difference.
So he was
But
trying to
then
be
he
a general
never
contractor, but he's not. So,
yeah,
so
but
he
the
was,
like price that he got the guy to agree to, he could not find a actual contractor to do it for that amount or lower, or even a little bit
oh,
higher. So he ended up getting arrested.
he got arrested.
Yeah,
This is a guy that was in your office. Whoa.
yeah.
So you knew the guy, or this was before you?
Oh man, dude. I mean, the guy was crazy. I have no idea who approved him to be. Yeah, but yeah, this did happen pretty recently.
Oh, that's the first time you told me that. That's crazy. So he was essentially he went to jail because he was pretending to be a general contractor.
Right.
Is that right? Okay. But
Pretty much.
did he ever
I don't
take
know
the
if he
money
was
from the
pretending
people?
to be a general contractor or if he was just like promising that he could get it done. Yeah, I guess he was pretending to be a general contractor. He was just gonna like sub out the work
Yeah, dude,
to
that's the definition of a general contractor in a lot of cases.
so
It's
he got the
crazy.
guy to sign a contract and then he couldn't sub out the work. He should have just gotten to work, dude. He should have just
Wow.
watched some YouTube videos, go get the lumber. I have a friend that he's building a whole side of his house. And it is taking him a while, but I mean, it's pretty
Mhm.
impressive what you can learn online. This guy should have just tried to go in there and do the work.
I don't know, man. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff that like you have to take into account as a builder that you just wouldn't know without experience. I feel like that's just
Yeah.
my argument with that. Like there's been things that I've wanted to DIY with my house, but then at the end of the day I'm like, I don't know what it could mean if I don't do this right. So
Right.
I'm outside on the on this side of the fence. For example, like I'll just throw out this example. The builder that built my house, great builder. I love our house. He actually designed the floor plan and everything, which I didn't know until a few weeks ago. But anyways, um, I live in a very humid area. I live basically on top of it's on a hill, and in the far distance, not directly around my property because I live on an interior lot, but in the far distance, there's a lake surrounding me. So it's kind of a peninsula. So you can imagine it gets very humid here. And one of the mistakes that I think the builder made that built my house was, to my knowledge, under the base plates where the wood framing sits on the concrete slab foundation, there is not, it's basically a foam pad that's like an insulation that doesn't let, it helps prevent a draft from going in between, particularly like moisture and so forth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to my knowledge, just from watching them build other houses in the neighborhood, they did not do that. And I'm telling you, this stuff would have cost less than $200 for my house for the size home it is, but they just didn't do it. So that mixed with, we have a spray foam insulation roof line, which it basically keeps our attic space cooler in the summertime and warmer in the winter time because it's part of the thermal index or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, our home is very tight. Like anytime that a door is open and then you open the other door, like it'll slam shut, or like you can just tell that it's like a very, very tight home. Meaning that the air that gets in probably isn't escaping very easily. And then what ultimately we think is happening is air comes in through the base plates, like I was referring to, and then a lot of that is humid air, and then so there's all this humidity coming into our home, and then it basically has nowhere to escape from,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which caused a humidity issue. And within a year of living in our brand new home, we actually had mold accumulating on our LVP, our luxury vinyl plate flooring around the baseboards in the back of our house.
Wow.
Which I didn't even know mold could grow on a non-wood surface like that, because LVP is not wood. But it was somehow accumulating, and we had two dogs at the time, which I think it was from like pet dander and so forth. So it was actually accumulating on that. But
Yeah.
think like behind your bedside drawer, behind like your shoe rack in the closet, there's just like all this green mold growing, and you didn't notice it because it's only in those areas. But then one day, whenever you have a 3-month newborn, you drop something. Actually, this is what happened. You drop something behind your bedside table, and then you reach for it, and you're just like, "What the is that mold?" And then you start, pretty much pulling the whole house apart, and you find it in other hidden areas. That's essentially what happened to us. And we got it professionally remediated, which costs about $5,000 for our 1,000 square foot house. That's, it's a very expensive process to get everything professionally removed. And I do think, especially with a newborn or an elderly person, that's definitely recommended. Hire a professional, and not just a professional that'll spray bleach on everything, like someone that's actually mold certified. I think that's very important. But essentially they put a Band-Aid on the issue. They couldn't like diagnose it in a way that would give them confidence. So what they did is they installed a commercial grade dehumidifier, like an April air system that goes on our air handler, and that sucks all the humidity out as the air, the HVAC is running. But the issue is that thing only has like a 15-year lifespan, and it has like annual maintenance, and it almost doubled our power bill per month on average because it's constantly running. So that's frustrating. But the whole reason I bring this up is even a builder that's been around for years, in my opinion, did not tailor this build to this lot. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm good. How are you? No, you're good. I'm on a call right now. It's nice to see y'all. So yeah, dude, like, basically it's just not tailored to this lot. So I just feel like that was a pretty frustrating part of it. But that just goes to show you, like, even a skilled builder in a lot of cases can run into scenarios where it's just like they didn't know. They built to spec, they built the county code, but they didn't know that the combination of their build style would lead to that issue. You know what I mean? So that, I guess, it gave me perspective in that way of just like, I don't know, even if it is a really good builder, like I'm gonna try to figure out as much about it as I can. Because obviously mold you can never predict, especially in a new construction. Like that's a very unique problem to have, I feel like.
Well, let's wrap it up because I gotta call this person back and got a friend coming over. But
Okay, yeah, if y'all like this video, as always, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to both our channels for more. There'll definitely be more like this to come. We'll link to last week's video somewhere on this video here. I feel like there should be like a question or something in this. So I feel like we covered a lot here. Trying to think what's something that
we talked about technology and how that's changing the industry a lot. We talked about building materials. We talked about a lot. It was a good call.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, if anyone watching this video has any similar experiences or had any questions about any of it, yeah, definitely let us know. But it was fun, Zeke, as always.
Yep, let's do it again next week.
Yep. All right. Peace.
Peace, bro.